incredibly inspired by all of you. It is really cool to see what's happening here in Texas. And so I want to say a little bit about the Community Life-Saving Dashboard. And how many have gone on and looked at that? How many have checked it out? So let me give you some really cool stats about that. So we have every single state in America has logged on and checked this out. We have thousands of visitors to this site. And so this gives you an idea of where the most traffic is. And this is just since the launch. And the thing that's cool about this is that this means we have active users who are checking out their own community to see how they can help in their shelter system. And we want your feedback. We want to know what you think about it. Is it working? What are the bugs? What could we do differently? Because we're going to keep iterating on this. This is not over. We're not just going to release it and let it sit there. We want it to be a tool that we continue to use year over year, forever. So please provide your feedback. And you know, one of the interesting things that we know is that when we were preparing to launch the dashboard, as we talked about the other day, it's one of those things that it's going to make people uncomfortable. Because it's like putting your underwear drawer out to the public, right? Like nobody wants to see the underwear drawer. And so it's about really saying every life counts. Every life has intrinsic value. And we went around and around on this, but at the end of the day, it's about all noses in and all noses out. And sometimes that means some really tough conversations, but I think they're conversations that we need to have with our own communities at a local level. And so we decided to include owner-requested euthanasia because we don't feel like those animals should be invisible. We think that that needs to be a conversation with each individual community. You should be talking to your community about that and what that means. And the truth is that there are animals that legitimately need to be euthanized because they're suffering. But there are animals that are savable. And case in point, I want to share one with you, which is really what launched the no-kill movement. And it was in 1980, Richard Avanzino, who was at the San Francisco SPCA, and anybody from Maddie's Fund, please stand up. Maddie's Fund, are you here? We love you guys. You guys have done so much for the movement. Thank you. I'm so grateful to you. And I think the thing is that, you know, Rich started at the San Francisco SPCA, and then he went on to lead. He was the first person to lead Maddie's Fund. And Rich had this interesting case happen to him while he was at the SPCA. So this dog came into his custody. The dog's name was Sido. And what had happened was Sido's owner, this woman, had committed suicide, sadly. And one of her wishes was that Sido be killed with her. And you can see Sido up here, I think. There you go. Sido is coming down the court steps with Rich. Very beautiful, healthy dog. And Rich saw this dog and he was like, no way, there is no way I'm going to kill this dog. And so there was a court battle. Rich won. He actually ended up adopting this dog, and this became the first owner-requested euthanasia. And Rich said, no way. And that kind of set a standard and a precedent for our movement. And the point of telling you this story is that we know that there are some of those animals that deserve a chance. But we also know that some humanely do need to be euthanized. We know that it's going to create controversy. And the point is that I want you to promise me something. Will you promise me something? Maybe a few things? Okay. Here's the thing. I want you to be good to yourself, and I want you to be good to others. This is a really tough movement. You guys are dealing with life and death decisions every single day. You see unimaginable tragedies. And I want you to take a minute and recognize that you have one life. That's it. And we all think that we have more time. And we don't. And I want you guys to really think about that. And I want you to be good to each other. And think about people in your community that you may disagree with. That's fine. But let's drop the hate. Let's drop the vitriol. Let's come together. Let's find the common ground. It's fine to have disagreements. It's healthy. Sometimes it's kind of fun because it kind of opens your mind to different stuff. But the hate and the vitriol and the negativity, life is too short. It is too important. And the reason I say this is because best friends just lost, over the past month, some really important people to us. 2 were part of our immediate family. And number 1 was Maya Drayton. And Maya, you can see pictured there in the black and white photo on the end. She was one of our original founders. She was with us from day one. And talk about, living your life totally committed to a cause. She was there through thick and thin, sucked it up, did whatever it took to help us build the sanctuary and then help us keep it afloat. We are deeply saddened by her loss. The second person in the middle is a woman named Sally Spencer, who was one of our super volunteers. And Sally was this beautiful spirit who spent a lot of time in Los Angeles and at the sanctuary and was just incredibly committed to best friends. And then the third person is somebody who was with best friends in the very beginning in Los Angeles, who actually ended up becoming an employee of the Humane Society of the United States, who we dearly love and were really saddened by her loss. She actually helped start the Genesis Awards, if you've heard of those. Her name's Beverly Caskey, and we're deeply saddened by them. I say this because I know all of you probably have somebody in your life who you've lost, a rescuer or a fellow shelter worker, and it is really hard. And I felt like it was time for us to take a minute and really be soulful about this and heartfelt and really honor these folks. So I want to just take a few minutes, few seconds to honor their lives and the lives of people that you know that you've lost. So let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. So I want to talk a little bit about societal change, and that we all in this room are on the doorstep of true societal change. Like, this isn't just some bumper sticker or us talking about something without a plan. We are edging closer and closer to a day when we don't have to kill pets anymore just because they don't have a home. We have gone from 17 million animals to about 733,000 within a pretty short time period, 35 years. This is one of the few industries I can think of where we have the answer, we have the solution. Most causes don't. Most causes don't have the answer, they don't have the solution, but we do. And it's time for us in our communities across America to honor those lives, not just human lives, but animal lives. It needs to go beyond the human. It needs to go to other lives because they have just as much value. They have intrinsic value. They have hearts. They have souls. And this is what this is about. We are really breaking a sound barrier here and thinking about what that societal change means. And so as I thought about this, and as I was sort of preparing for this speech, I thought, what's a thing that everyone can relate to? And I was like, Game of Thrones. Everybody knows Game of Thrones. Who here is a fan of Game of Thrones? All right. I don't know. You got to be louder than that because maybe I've missed something. Okay. Good. So listen, my favorite character in Game of Thrones was Arya Stark, right? The teenage ninja warrior who killed the, king, the Dark King, right? And so there was this really cool episode and scene where she, she's like, they're all trapped in Winterfell. And it looked like the end was near. And they were surrounded by the dead. And it looked like there was no way they were going to get out of this. And the Dark King was like, basically had all of them right where he wanted. And so I want to show you this clip because I thought it was quite profound. So go for it.
What do we say to the god of death?
Not today.
Not today. And I love Game of Thrones, but I think I love the Kansas City Pet Project more. How many know Kansas City Pet Project? Okay, are you in the house today? All right, please stand up, Kansas City Pet Project. So, listen. So I heard this story from Brent Tollner, who, Brent is one of the co-founders of Kansas City Pet Project. And, it's a remarkable story. He and his wife sat down one day, and, the city was struggling, and they were looking to, bid out their contract to run their shelter. And he and his wife were like, who could we get to do this? And nobody really came to mind, and they tried some people, and they went to a bar one night and had some drinks. And on the back, they were like, why don't we do it? On the back of a napkin, they, developed their plan, which cracks me up. I think beer had something to do with it. He said margaritas, but I don't know. So these guys ended up, really just pushing the boundaries in Kansas City. And within 18 months, they'd taken that place no-kill. Or maybe it was 6. I might have that wrong. But the thing that was cool is he instilled that in all of the staff. That sense of not today. That sense of we can do this. And so his director of shelter operations, Shannon Wells. Shannon, are you here? I love you, by the way. So she's there one day, and 2 parvo pups show up. And she looked into their eyes, and she looked into their faces, and she was like, not today. You're not dying today. And so, guess what she did? She scrambled around, rallied the troops, they cleaned out the janitor's closet, and they turned that into the temporary parvo ward. And guess what? Since then, they've saved hundreds of parvo pups in Kansas City because this woman said, not today. I know. And so I was like, wait a second, the Game of Thrones ripped that off from Kansas City Pet Project. I'm pretty sure. So, you think about something like that, and as you know, I love to weave in stories about history and, just different dynamic political things into my speeches or my writings because I believe that we learn from our past. I believe that our past is actually our roadmap to the future. And so for me, it's always really interesting to go back and say, how did this happen and what happened? And you guys heard me reference the John F. Kennedy moonshot speech with the Apollo landing, Apollo 11. And I thought it was appropriate that, hey, here we are in Texas, and it's like NASA Center. So what a great opportunity to kind of weave that story in. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, there's another really cool story that I don't think a lot of people know a lot about, and that's Apollo 13. How many know that story? So it looks like quite a few of you do, but there's a part of that story that I didn't know until I started researching it, which really blew my mind. And so I want to play this clip for you right now because it's really profound, and it was live television. So imagine sitting at home around the TV, which we did back in the day with the family, all watching this heroic moment for America's space program, and you see this. So go for it, guys.
Okay,
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Yes, sir. Houston, we've had a problem.
Okay, stand by, 13. We're looking at it.
we may have had an instrumentation problem, flight. Roger.
And we hit a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning there.
Go ahead, flight. I want you to get some guys figuring out minimum power in the LEM to sustain life.
So, I mean, here this is on live television, right? And basically what happened was there was an explosion of the oxygen cells, and it damaged the compartment that provided the life support. And here's what they were staring at. They were staring at, they were 205,000 miles away from Earth. 2.5 days from Earth. They were 3/4 of the way to the moon. They didn't even have enough fuel to turn around. They couldn't turn around. And so I think everyone thought they're screwed. There is no way they're going to make it back alive. And so the Houston command basically said, not today. We are not going to let these guys die. And so they scrambled around, and the thing that's most remarkable to me about this is the only thing they had to work with was the stuff in that little capsule. And here is the most high-tech, company or government agency back in the day probably was some of the smartest scientists around who had to figure this out in a matter of hours because they were running out of oxygen. There was no way these guys were going to survive. So here's what they did. They're like, we've got it. We know what we're going to do. And here's what we're going to do. We've got duct tape, socks, duct tape, socks, the back of the cardboard flight plan notebook that they were using. We've got some plastic bags in the capsule, and we've got a couple of hoses from the astronaut suit. And this is how we're going to get them back home. This is the high-tech thing that we're going to use to get these guys back home. And this is what they built. And guess what? They got them back home. They basically had to slingshot them to the pull of the moon, the gravity of the moon, get them on the other side. But this is what saved their lives. And it was that scrappy ingenuity, collaborative, just whatever it takes to make it work that you've heard everybody that we've referenced today that they do to save lives. It's Shannon Wells, it's Ellen Jefferson, it's Ed Jamison, it's Dr. White, it's all of you guys in this room scrambling around to make this work. It's all of you guys who are saying, not today. We are not going to let this happen today. And there's so many stories like this, like the founders of Best Friends Animal Society, who 35 years ago put a stake in the ground in the middle of nowhere, thinking like that was a popular place to hunker down and start your business. Like, hey, this will be great. Lots of people will see us. So they start this sanctuary, and the whole premise was, let's figure out how to best save lives rather than how to best end lives. And let's stop the killing now. Let's do it now. And they were the impetus, along with Rich Avanzino, for starting the no-kill movement. How brave is that, to say, not today? Pretty incredible. And then you have PVAC, Palm Valley, and you have a woman named Alma. Is she here? Is Alma here? So Alma was arranging a transport up to New York, right? So are you guys here, the New York crew? Rough House Rescue. I love you guys so much. Okay. So Alma walks into the euthanasia room. She's gathering a bunch of really cute puppies. And there's this sort of, this dog looks like a million dogs you've seen. Nothing special about its looks, really. It's just a brown and tan dog, black and tan dog, about 7 years old, and it actually had the needle in its leg to be euthanized. And she was like, not today. Not today is this happening. And she called you guys and said, will you please take this dog? And they did. Jeter. Jeter. And what happened to Jeter? Okay, but she's doing okay. All right, good. So then we have Norfolk. We have Norfolk. Do we have Jake Ross here? Is Jake here today? Jake, if you're here, stand up. So Jake, this guy, Chaos, was the name of this dog, comes in and was paralyzed, couldn't use his back legs. And Jake was like, what did Jake say? I need to hear that louder. Jake said, not today. And so Jake figured out how to get Chaos into a wheelchair and transferred him up to Lynchburg Humane. Do we have any Lynchburg folks here? McKenna, maybe? Okay, not today. I want to hear it. All right. So then we have Julius Evaru, who is in Dallas. Julie, if you're here, stand up. So Julie's entire mission is that she just takes dogs that are it's their last day. Like, I want the last day dogs. And so Julie took this dog, Addie. Not today. Julie saved this dog, Addie, by saying, not today. And then we have Cherie Shankar from Los Angeles, who was in the East Valley shelter, walking by the euthanasia room, sees this beautiful cat, and she said to herself, I can't let that cat die. And what did she say? And guess what? This cat ended up living the rest of its life in Beverly Hills. Right? And so then we have Lulu. And Lulu was sort of in the lineup of euthanasia at Harris County. And Amy Colebecker's office was right across from that lineup. And she saw this beautiful shepherd and looked into the eyes of this shepherd. And what did she say? And she called Francis and Silva Batista and pawned Lulu off onto them. And so now Francis and Silva are the proud owners of Lulu. And what did Francis and Silva say? And guess what? They're not sleeping anymore because Lulu sleeps in their bed, and every time they roll around, she growls at them. So here's the thing. This is our charge. We need to get outside of our circle. We need to get into the public's eye. We need to make this a mainstream issue. We need to help them understand that that we are not going to kill animals in America's shelters anymore. Not today. That it is time for us to put this to rest. It is time for us to put this to an end. That not today are we going to kill any more animals. We have moved on from that. Imagine a time 30 years from now when people say, you really did that? How did you do that? Why did you do that? So I would say, what are you going to say to your public? Okay, I need to hear it louder. All right, you guys, I love you. I love Texas. I can't wait till you're number one. Thank you so much for letting us be here. We are so incredibly grateful. And see you next year.